It is time to talk NBA playoffs on Open Court here on NBA TV. Afternoon, everybody. Evening, whatever time you're watching. And this is Ernie Johnson, and this is the esteemed panel that we have of 7 former NBA players, beginning with Charles Barkley, the always alert. You've seen the show before. You've seen Charles lose interest. I can guarantee you he will not lose interest in this episode. Almost certainly. Sitting next to him is Reggie Miller, who was always dialed in. Chris Webber next to him, recently turned 40. And Brent Barry sitting in for Kenny Smith. And
I'm the black Kenny Smith.
You are the...
the black.
No? Is that bad?
No.
That's pretty funny.
That's pretty funny. We got racial humor.
I saw that episode.
Okay.
Here's Steve Smith to my left. Always good to see Smitty. And Shaquille O'Neal. And rounding out the panel is Steve Kerr. So let's talk about playoffs. This is the time of year that we just gear ourselves to doing what we do, but as players too. This was the goal, Chris Webber, from the first day of training camp, is to be one of those 16 teams still playing at this time.
It's the goal every year in the NBA, and to have the legitimate hope or the false hope that you can win a championship. And it's nothing like the playoffs. I think last year, Steve Kerr was talking about, some of our best memories are the best dunks and the best things that happen in those pressure moments. And as a kid, you go outside saying Bird Magic, Jordan Magic, and all that with playoffs in mind. So it's nothing like the playoffs.
When you think of playoff moments, and again, it could be specific games, it could be specific possessions, Reggie, but what screams NBA playoffs to you?
Intensity. In all my travels, people come up now that I'm retired and say, do you miss the game? It's not so much you miss the game, because I don't miss the regular season, the travel, airports, buses. What I miss is playoff basketball, the intensity, every time you've got to study for your opponent, you get a chance to hone in and lock in certain, races and rivalries. There's nothing like preparing for a playoff series.
And when you do get to that point, Shaq, and you do know finally, okay, this is the team we're getting, and there is a specific matchup in there that said, well, it's going to be tough. Or who for you was the toughest playoff matchup?
We had a lot. And I actually played against two of my toughest opponents sitting here. All of us were always on good teams, but in the back of my mind, we knew deep down that there were teams that had a little bit more talent, teams that were tougher, and teams that were better. For us, first 4 years me and Kobe got together, we failed miserably. We got swept San Antonio twice, by Utah twice. Once we got failed and became a good team, there was 2 teams that we feared. That was the Sacramento Kings.
Whoa, let it go.
No, I'm bringing it back. And the Portland Jail Blazers.
You got to stand on Steve.
Those teams were very, very talented, and they had all the pieces from 1 through 5. And when C-Webb went to that Sacramento team, he just turned the whole franchise around. He gave them swag, and the guys that really couldn't play, him and Jason Williams gave them the belief that they could play, and they actually went out and performed every night. And against those 2 teams, we had to do everything right. I always tell people that, because those teams were great, I really had to raise my game.
You were really worried about Corliss Williamson?
No, it wasn't.
You were really worried about Corliss Williamson?
No.
Come on now,
No,
man.
but no, it wasn't my man I was worried about. It was the other guys I was worried about. Like, who's going to guard C-Webb? Who's going to guard Jason Williams? Who's going to guard Steve Smith with the move that he stole from me? Who's going to guard, Rasheed Wallace?
A lot of stuff that you're going to have to respond to early on here, Smitty. Man, alive.
Who's going to guard, Rasheed Wallace picking and popping and, shooting? So, we always had to play damn near perfect to beat these guys. And luckily, we did that. I mean, those are my, best moments playing against Sacramento and playing against Portland. I mean, that right there was like playoff basketball. It was intense. The way the game is played now, I'm gonna go on the record and say it was soft. When we all played, it was a little bit hard, but before us, that was really playoff basketball.
I think y'all all hit it, the intensity. I think, all of us playing in the playoffs, say Reggie Miller, I knew everything Reggie was gonna do, but that's what made Reggie a great player. That's what I kind of measured teams and players by playoffs, because I knew what Reggie was going to do, and he still did it. There's some guys, you can face some guys throughout the year, and you hear once a month, when you got to face the guy 7 games and you know every play, you know what he likes to do, and you still can't stop it. And then on the other end, you got to figure out how to go at him. That's when you know you've arrived or you're not there, because I know everything you do, Ernie. I've been studying. I know every play. I know every call.
Right. And it comes down then to a battle of wills, does it not?
I mean, both sides.
Yeah.
And then playing against the Lakers,
Yeah.
where they always cheated.
Yeah. Well,
When you fouled me, say you fouled me.
Yo,
See what you got anything to add?
Anything,
Doesn't
Chris?
matter. Yo, down 7 points.
I heard a rumor one time about some cheating, and
Listen,
I guess it never happened.
It's not a rumor.
Steve Smith goes right to the rack, lost the ball. He goes to the floor. There's no foul.
How is that not a foul?
Hey, y'all was down 7 points. I fouled you, so what?
Okay,
I fouled you.
You finally admitted it.
I fouled you.
All right, thanks.
But not that year.
David Stern, did you hear that? He fouled me.
Not that year. The year before I fouled you. That play that you're talking about, I didn't even touch it.
Speaking of the playoffs, I was so mad at y'all when y'all lost to Shaq and them after coming back, because we knew we had y'all. Well, that's what we felt.
It's the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
we were going to the finals to play Reggie and them.
no, but still, if y'all would have beat them that year,
Right.
they were going to break up Shaq and them everything. It was over.
Yeah, no, it was.
It was. If y'all would have did that, we knew that
Y'all wasn't
next
beating
year.
us though, Will.
You had a big lead going to the fourth
would've got
quarter of
you.
that
I
game,
don't
didn't you,
know,
Smith?
Yes, 15. And then Smitty started talking, then the
I've
Davis
always
boys started
talked. I've
talking.
always talked.
Rashid started talking.
Up 10, down 10. I've always started
Woke
talking.
us up.
I will say this, Smitty. How could y'all leave Brian Shaw those 2 times back-to-back?
That's
Brian,
where,
I mean-
that's where, I played with Brian.
Because y'all were playing to face us. I was at home, and I got out my Steve Smith. I was like, oh, okay, it's Scottie Pippen, Steve
Right.
Smith. That's who I'm going to be going against.
Oh, so you counted us out?
Yes, everyone did.
Everybody did.
Everyone did.
No way.
But it was at that point,
It's a
Reg, you're right.
15-point game in the
So
fourth
what?
quarter of Game
It
7.
was,
What
we
you
had
freaking do, Ernie?
to double him, right? So I said come off Glenn Rice, and everybody thought I was a fool, because I figured if you come off Glenn Rice, he's gonna make or miss the shot. But if you run Glenn off the 3, you have a better chance. Brian Shaw is gonna make the next play. Our coaching staff wanted to come off Brian Shaw, and here we go. I'm at home.
Do you want to
sitting there.
name the members of the coaching staff?
Starting with the video guys.
Gotta go back to the records. And,
But Ernie, you know what? Speaking of coaches, we talked about this on an earlier show. We were down 15, and Phil, a lot of coaches, they
He was
panicked.
nervous.
No, he wasn't nervous. No way.
panicked.
He did not panic.
He panicked.
He didn't panic. A lot of coaches in that situation, you can see the panic in their eyes. You can hear the panic in their voice. He came in and said, okay, guys, we had a great season. Maybe we're not ready for this team. I'll see you guys next year. And then he just went back out. And then we started looking at each other like, what? Oh, you can't? No, hell no.
Bryant to Shaq.
Because I admit, I thought that, it was probably over too, but then.
So is it okay that we thought that too then? You were like, you counted us out? Even you thought that.
I said
just
we.
said it.
I said we as a team, not me. I apologize.
Chuckster, what's the series you'll never forget that you played in? Is it the finals?
Yeah, that was a tough series. But I think the 2 7-game losses to the Rockets were probably the one to stick with me the most. The Bulls, they won 6 championships, so they probably had a better team. But to lose Game 7 to the Rockets twice the 2 years they won in the conference finals, to lose 2 tough Game 7s, those are very difficult to get over, to be honest with you. But, you talk about the playoffs. When the playoffs start, there's so much energy and intensity going on, but it just ramps up every round you go. But the thing that makes that energy so high and your adrenaline, when you lose, it's like a death in the family. Now, the finals is a whole different animal. You never get over losing the finals. You never get over that. But when you play basketball every day since October, when you lose, let's say, the second round of the playoffs, you're kind of like, wow, what do I do tomorrow? It's a shock.
You got a ring with Pop. What stands out about that?
I'm gonna do Kenny's thing where he does this. It was 2 times.
2 times.
Well, the one thing, like Shaq was just saying, there's just never a nervousness about it, because he has an understanding of what makes everybody go. And when we're not on the same page. He knows exactly kind of what paragraph to pick out so that we're back there pretty quick. And he does play the same psychological games, I think, that Phil would play, like Shaq was mentioning, in order for you guys to find really what your center is. And that's about doing your job and just having accountability. And that starts from day one of training camp. The message just doesn't change all year long. It's a process until it's the end of the process. And then when that one's done, we'll worry about the next one. But it's always the same message every day that we're just trying to get better and play for one another. And if we do that, we'll give ourselves the best chance to win. If you don't mind, Ernie, I want to ask Shaq and Charles and Webb and Reggie, being star players and having the responsibility of your team, and you lose the season, do you feel like you carry around more than what, in my situation, as a role player? You know, a guy that if I got minutes, I wanted to go in and do my job to the best of my ability and come out and make sure that we made a positive impact. Did you carry more when you lost and it was the off season?
You carry more because, us three guys are all great players. And, okay, LeBron, I'm not comparing myself to LeBron, but at some point, they'll say like, oh, they're great, but they didn't win the championship. That was what's going on with LeBron in Cleveland. You sit back. That's probably going to start happening to Kevin Durant from now on. Like every year he don't win a championship, like he's great, he's leading scorer, he's great, but he never won a championship. So they only said it's kind of a backhanded compliment, to be honest with you. But it's a tough, you just have to live with it. I mean, that's just a personal responsibility. I mean, no disrespect. They're never going to say, oh, Brent didn't win the championship. But they're like, Charles didn't win it, Reggie didn't win it, C. Webb didn't win it, Elgin Baylor, Dan Marino. You know, like every guy who's a great player in your sport, it's like that one little thing up there. So it wears on you.
With me, it wears because I wanted to win a championship. But when I hear stories about the great coaches that you guys had, and I had some awesome coaches, but when I hear about stories about how coaches handle things, or I always say this, the best teams have the best role players. Role players relish their job like a championship. And so I just always wanted everyone to take it as serious as I was. That was my only gripe. Like, we're sitting here in film session, I don't know why you laughing. You haven't made a jump shot in the last 10 games and you won't pay attention. You know, so I was like, we all need to take this as serious. Just because you go home and it won't be the same, like Chuck said, is true. But I wanted everybody to have that passion. And I don't know if it's true, but it seemed like on championship teams that, you know, you knew your job was just as important as Jordan, even if it was different responsibilities. But, you know, I just wanted everybody to realize that we're all important. If we're not a good team, we won't win regardless of what's going on.
I carried all the pressure because deep down in my mind, if we didn't win, I knew one way or another it was going to be blamed on me, probably from the free throw line. So when we didn't win, I always took it really hard and I always said to myself, I gotta do whatever it takes to get to the next level. That's why, like, I just wanted to dominate the games in other areas. So in case I wasn't on at the free throw line, sometimes it didn't matter. But if we didn't win, yes, I took it really hard.
Well, I can only speak for myself, but personally, it's the greatest failure in my career because it's different when you're out front because you have 11 other guys in that locker room looking right back at you, counting on you. And you get all the pats on the back when you make big shots and, you know, you get the big contract. But with that comes a lot of responsibility. And going back over 18 years, it probably wouldn't hurt as much if I wasn't so close so many years, being to the conference finals 6 times, to finals once, going against great teams. But that's what you're paid to do. When you are at the head of the table and you have 11 other people looking back and you're accounting for, it's, to me, my greatest failure.
If he's got that kind of pain, what do you feel, Steve Kerr, with numerous rings? And is it possible to rank those in terms of what is most meaningful for you?
They're all incredibly meaningful, mainly because of what Reggie's talking about, the people that you're playing with, you know, the relationships you make with the guys on your team. You remember those things forever. And when you win the whole thing, there's no greater feeling as a group, what you're doing with your friends. The accomplishment feels so great, and you share that the rest of your life. And, you know, even if you're just a a role player on the team, as C. Webb said. If you're doing your job and you make a key play here or two in even one game of the series, you know, you've made an impact, and that stays with you.
We are talking the NBA playoffs here on Open Court. Much more discussion right around the bend.
It's easy to get psyched out. You start putting too much emphasis on each shot. And so for me, I think in that moment, it was just a matter of just saying, you know what, screw it. If I get the ball, I'm just going to shoot it.
Greer's putting the ball on a play. He gets it out deep, and Havlicek steals it over the sand zone. Havlicek stole the ball. It's all over.
Sampson. It goes. It's over. Pass comes into Jordan. Here's Michael at the foul line. A shot on Elo. Good! The Bulls win! They win! Here's Horning. The shot. Gets it to LeBron for three for the win. Yes! LeBron James at the buzzer!
I don't know what game it was, I don't know what series, but the coach was talking to Michael. Michael wasn't paying attention, he was drinking. He looks up at Steve and says, you know they're gonna double me, I'm gonna kick it to you. And Steve says with confidence, don't worry, I'm gonna hit the jumper.
He comes off, I'll be ready.
One of my favorite moments from you is, you know, just how you played, the intensity you played with.
At the buzzer, yeah!
You know, you used to talk a lot of smack. It worked most of the time, but not against us. I don't remember a lot of your playoff moments.
I figured you skipped me.
Yeah, I don't no offense, I love you. You know, you're one of my favorite white guys ever played the game.
Thank you.
My favorite playoff moment from you, Reggie, everybody counted you out against New York, and the way you did that, and you came back, and I think you hit 3 threes in under 30 seconds.
Miller for three, and he got it. Reggie Miller with a clutch tray, and it's 105-102. And a steal. Miller retreats to the three-point line and hits again.
That was some of the best.
I thought you were going to talk about the time we beat you in the playoffs.
You beat us? Oh, yeah, you did beat us. In Orlando, yeah, you killed us. Yeah. My favorite playoff moment from you was playing the Spurs. And your coach called a play, and you told him, no, give me the ball, I'm going to do it. And you got the ball at the top of the key, and you already knew you was going to make the shot. You knew it. I love the confidence. I love what you did. You look up at the clock, and you waited. David Robinson disrespected you and back off, and you gave him a dribble, you gave him a stutter step, and you shot the jumper with confidence. All draws and won the game.
Barkley, 20-footer, yes, with 1.8 seconds. Charles Barkley.
You know what's interesting? You know, obviously, Reggie's moment is one of the greatest in NBA history. But you know what's funny about that? We had the second game that day. So I had to leave with like 30 seconds to go to get to the game. And so we go to the game, and everybody's like talking. I said, man, that was a tough loss for the Pacers today. They're like, dude, what are you talking about? I said, man, that was a hell of a game. The Pacers lost. They're like, dude, you didn't see the last 30 seconds? I said, I had to come to the game. I said, so I didn't have time then, so I went back and looked at that game, the tape of that game after our game, and I was like, that's one of them, that can't happen. That was so surreal.
Yeah, Reggie scored like 17 points in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
It gets better every time you tell it.
It's interesting because, you know, you're talking about playoff basketball and you talk about the intensity. You know, C. Webb can probably attest to this. Playing in a small market, the love that you receive from the fans, because it changes from round one, you get to the conference finals and/or finals. You know, you might have a sign or two from kids, you know, good luck. You go to the second round, there might be 10 signs. Time you get to the conference finals, they got banners hanging up. You're going down to the game. Everyone in your block and street has, you know, the flags, and they have banners out. And, you know, when you play in a small market, it's like you're playing for them. I mean, there's so much, everywhere you go, that's all they're talking about. 12 o'clock during the soaps, they're talking about your game.
We're playing in Sacramento, our first year making the playoffs. We came to a game and Coach said the next day was like, people are going to be sleeping out here. And we're like, why? So we come back, people are sleeping out in tents, and Jay Will, we ordered a bunch of pizzas and sent it to him, but it was like a responsibility almost. You know, it's definitely a college atmosphere. They cheer for free throws, cheer for every bucket, but definitely playing for a small town city. You feel like, you know, the whole city's on your shoulders and you got to do them right.
San Antonio's the same way, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say the same about with those guys in Sacramento, because I go back and I'm kind of in the Bay Area every now and again to see my mom, and there's a lot of Chris's, Jason's, and Vlades wandering around town because of these guys in the playoffs. For sure.
Hey, my mom watching. I'm telling about my kids.
Hey, Steve, when Shaq talks about that moment with Michael and, you know, I'll make it. I mean, can you walk me through that and take me through the confidence angle on that?
Michael, 6 seconds, 5. Michael in traffic to Curl, 15-footer.
I probably appeared more confident than I actually was.
That's half the battle, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
You got to kind of have to talk your way into it. But no, I had a lot of moments in the playoffs where I was not clutch at all, where I got nervous, I missed shots that I should have made. And I think you have to get to a certain point, especially if you're a role player, where you know you're only going to get, you know, a handful of opportunities to make a big play. You know, you can't start out a game 0 for 6 if you're, you know, a role player and expect to even get back in the game. So it's easy to get psyched out and you start putting too much emphasis on each shot. And so for me, I think in that moment, it was just a matter of just saying, you know what, screw it. If I get the ball, I'm just going to shoot it. Whatever happens, happens.
As far as the moment when we were in San Antonio playing against Dallas, I mean, you hadn't really played that whole series. You came in with such confidence. Where's that moment rank for you when you hit about?
That was a great moment.
That moment seemed like you were having a lot of fun.
I had so much fun, yeah, because I was 37. I you know, probably should have retired 2 years before. I was hanging on for dear life, and I get, you know, I hardly played at all during the playoffs, and then I think Tony Parker had food poisoning or something, and it was just kind of the perfect situation.
Again! Steve Kerr with another 3!
Dallas was playing a zone. I got a couple open looks, and all of a sudden I'm feeling it, and it's like an out-of-body experience, you know. It's like, this isn't supposed to be happening at 37, and we were talking about small markets and how everybody responds. When we flew home that night, the entire street where I lived had gathered on my lawn, and they had TP'd my lawn, they had chalked the driveways, hung up Spurs banners all along Grandview, where Brent also lived later on, same street. But the people are just wild about the Spurs, and it's one of the great moments of my life. Going not the game itself, that is,
but coming home,
but coming home and seeing that response, just incredible.
Can I say this, Ernie?
Yes.
Never a good idea to follow Steve Kerr anywhere. I did live on the same street, and when I didn't do the things Steve did, I would drive down the street and be like, that's not Steve. That's not Steve.
TP in your house for different reasons. They don't like you.
Exactly. I'm not going to talk about the flaming bag of poo either.
and we're thankful for that. We've got more to come on Open Court on NBA TV after this.
It depends on how you rate your teams, because I always felt Sacramento was a better team.
Come on, stop it.
Let me
Y'all
finish.
had 3 Hall of Famers on it, man. Come on.
Chris just not in the mood to hear it at all. Talking the playoffs here on Open Court. Charles, does the best team always win?
Yes.
Always. There's never been an upset.
No, because
in a series.
I don't believe that. And I think we're the only sport where the best team always wins, because in hockey, if you got a great goalie, you can win. We won the World Series in Arizona with 2 good pitchers, Kurt Schilling and Randy Johnson. They just won 4 games every series. You know, and you've seen it in football. The Rams won on offense. You saw the Ravens win at one time strictly on defense. But to beat a team 4 out of 7, you might get lucky 1 game. You might get lucky 2 games. But you're not going to beat a team 4 times unless you're a better team.
So when you couldn't get past Houston, they were a better team.
They were a better team.
It wasn't just because it was a bad matchup for y'all.
Well, Ernie, we won 3 games, then they won 4 games. So it ain't no bad matchups. But you have to get a break. I mean, like, it's all. I mean, it might be a fluke play here or there, but all those other games, well, when it was 3-3, could have went either way. But I think we're the only sport where the best team always wins.
Any disagreement on the panel here? Go ahead, Shaq.
You know, it It depends on how you rate your teams, because I always felt Sacramento was a better team.
Come on, stop
let me
Y'all
finish.
had 3 Hall of Famers on it, man. Come on.
Chris just not in the mood to hear it at all.
What we had was...
First you're calling them Queens, now you're saying
we're
they're
saying
a
we
better
better. Come
team.
on, man.
What is up with you?
Can I finish my point?
Please.
Please, yes.
I always felt that they were a lot more unselfish than we had. They had way better three-point shooting. They shot way better from the free throw line. I just felt that the offense that we ran, because of how we practiced, we were a better executing team down the stretch and a better executing team under pressure.
You don't get deep in the playoffs with bad coaching. Right. I mean, I don't think you get. If you get to the conference finals or the finals, your coach is pretty good. That team he talks about won 3 championships. Mm-hmm. You know, so how many teams can say they're better than a 3-time champion?
You know, it also depends on how you rate your team. You rate them by talent, you rate them by players, because we had, I mean, it was me and Kobe, and we had a lot of great others. You know, a lot of others that you won't really hear about it. You know, we always have this discussion. Big Shot Bob, who has 7 rings. Will he make it to the Hall of Fame? Some people say yes, some people no. So we just had a lot of great others.
Great role players, though, because you talk about Big Shot Bob.
Yes.
But you had Ron Harper, who had won championships with the Bulls. Rick Fox. I mean, you guys had
Fisher.
You guys had the complementary players
Samaki Walker
to be great.
Well, plus you had to...
Mike Penberthy, what's up, Penberthy?
Samaki was talking so much during that series. I'm like,
you know, he was so bad.
You know, listen, you guys had arguably the 2 best players in the NBA. I mean, it's kind of crazy to say they were better than you. Chris was a great player, but I don't think he played with any other great player. You know, y'all role players were better than some of his starters. I mean, you take seriously.
Cream always rises to the top, and it's the intangible things, because if Vlade doesn't tip the ball back, or whoever tips, and Ori hits the shot, the 3 that sends it to I mean, it's the little things in a 7-game series.
Bryant putting a move on Christie. Rebound O'Neal. Coming up short. Ori for the win. Yes!
If someone hits that out of bounds, you guys win that game, and you probably go on to win that series. But cream always rises. It just so happened the ball happened to go out to the 3. It just so happened to go to Big Shot, and he just so happened to hit the shot.
There seemed to be an aura about that Sacramento team that it felt like all the rest of the league, I know I was jealous of it, but I think all the rest of the NBA at that time really wanted to be on the Kings, because the team had so much fun, to Shaq's point about being so unselfish, that everybody thought, like, even though you were a better team, let's face it, you won. But the fact is that everybody wanted to be like Sacramento and wanted to believe that if you played like that, you had one star like Chris Webber who played unselfish and surrounded with a bunch of really good, fun-loving guys, that you might have a shot to take down Goliath. And I feel like you guys were always, you had the country rooting for you, especially against the big bag Lakers. But I think people felt you were a better team in that regard.
And we wanted to get it for the small market. I always rooted for Reggie. I always rooted, you know, for all you guys, but I always rooted for Karl Malone wanting to do. So it was that thing like, we're David, let's go get Goliath. And you won all those. But I do agree with you guys. The best team wins because, as you guys said, one little tip, you know, it all comes down to discipline. Who can remain disciplined for the longest? And, you know, but as you said earlier, it's the greatest failure. And you have a few of them, and I just love the fact that at the end of the day, you know, we competed against the best, and, you know, you had to do a lot to take us out. So that's, well, you know, something you take with you on the way out while you're crying.
So there's certainly the intangibles that go into it, and there's certainly the bounce of the ball and the unexpected that happened. But if you had to make a checklist, Steve Kerr, of the ingredients for a championship, things you must have, all that other stuff not taken into account at this point, what is it? What's at the top of the list?
Well, for me, you must have either Michael Jordan or Tim Duncan.
It's very good.
That's the start. But you must have a great coach. And we've kind of touched on that in this conversation. You've got to have a coach who has a firm grasp on the team, because there are moments for every team that you go through where it's like, oh man, we're in trouble. And you have to have that leader as a coach to kind of guide you through there. You got to have health. You know, one injury can change everything. And then I think you just have to have a strong belief as a group. I mean, ultimately, that's kind of what makes it special, is that you see it happening as you're going through it. The whole group comes together in a way that maybe it doesn't during the regular season. So you get stronger as you go, and you can feel the momentum changing.
And let me tell you this. The year we made it to the finals in Phoenix, that was the best team I ever played on. It was the most unselfish team I ever played. We had one goal. Let's win the championship. Let's win the championship. That was our only goal from day one. I knew after that first year I would never get back to the finals. Because the one thing, and I think all these guys know, we had guys start opening up restaurants. We had guys talking about wanting to get a new contract and bodyguards. Yeah, we had guys complaining about playing time. And I knew then, I says, the fabric of our team had changed. It became, instead of about us, it became about me. Like, I says, wait, we got 3 guys who weren't starters open up restaurants. Hey, because you know, if you don't, guys get caught up in this thing. I had guys sitting on the bench talking, well, I should be making as much money as Kevin Johnson and Dan Marley and Charles. Like, dude, you on the bench. You don't deserve to make as much money as a starter. Then, like I say, we had guys complaining about playing time. So psychologically, I never wanted to admit it. I said,
so would that be like Cedric Ceballos and Frank Johnson? Call them out. Don't say guys. Call them out.
And Dan Marley's.
No, Dan Marley, first of all.
Call them out.
Dan Marley had a restaurant. Dan Marley had a restaurant, which was well-deserved. We had 2 guys on the bench who opened up restaurants.
What guys?
Who? I'm not throwing out the bus.
What guys? Mark West? Who?
Joe Klein. We had Joe Klein tonight after the game.
Who? What guys?
Man. Somebody sitting at home minding their own business. I'm not going to throw them on the bus.
What guys are you talking about? Danny was on that team. Did Danny
Nigel Miguel.
No habla English.
I think for me, our Portland team, sometimes you can have too much talent. I think we were trying not to step on each other's toes. We didn't have that go-to guy star because everybody averaged from 12 to 14 down to 10. And I thought that hurt us when you started to go to that timeout, who wants the basketball? We had 5 guys says, I want it, which Shaq, Kobe, Reggie, Charles, you knew where it was going. And we didn't play off one guy where we knew they were going to Shaq. We knew they were going to Kobe. Mm-hmm. We were trying to always find a hot hand. And then I thought patience from our ownership. After we lost to Shaq in that year, they wanted to break it up, which I didn't think they gave us enough time. But that was one of the unbelievable teams as far as top to bottom. We had everything covered as far as guys with skill sets.
I think, Ernie, you need a battle-tested coach with a great resume. If he has a couple of championships, that's better. Better for the guys to relate to. You need a consistent 1-2 punch. And what I mean by consistent, I mean, you know, they have to put up whatever numbers they put up, they have to do that night in and night out. Even if they don't get along with each other, they still have to do what they do. And third of all, you have to have a lot of luck. Because I'll be the first to tell you, even though I have 4 rings, 3 of those rings were very, very lucky. He alluded to 1 point early. If Vlade don't tip that shot back, and Big Bob don't hit that shot, we may lose that series. Mm-hmm. If Derek Fisher don't hit the .04 shot versus San Antonio, we may lose that series.
Here they go. They get it to Fisher. He scores! Derek Fisher scores at the buzzer!
If Gary in Miami, when we're down 0-2 in Dallas, don't hit the baseline jumper, that, you know, we might not win that series. So, you know, you got to have all those things, and you got to have health, and, you know, you just have to believe.
We'll be back with more. How did your restaurant do, by the way, Charles?
I've never opened up a restaurant.
Well, let's keep that way. Much more to come on Open Court.
When Isaiah turned the ball over, I think it was against the Celtics, and either Bird or Dennis Johnson stole it. They scored. We go around the house. You know, it's okay to make noise, but you got 4 boys now with breaking stuff, and people are crying and going crazy.
Back here on Open Court as we talk NBA playoffs, and if you get in the Wayback Machine here, what's the first memory you have of watching the playoffs in the NBA, Charles?
The Boston Celtics against the Phoenix Suns the triple overtime game is my first recollection of a game. And Gar Heard shoot, they had to clear the people off the court.
Curtis Perry wanting somebody to stand back. Won't start until it's touched. They'll have to throw it up. Gar Heard, turnaround, shot in the air. It's good. It's tied again. I don't believe it.
That was the first time I was like, wow, this looked like it might be fun. I mean, but Gar Heard, right at the free throw line, shot the ball like up on the roof, and it came down, and they had to clear the crowd off the court. That's my first recollection.
I mean, were you an NBA fan back then? Were you on top of the league? Did you have favorite players? Or
No, because, Ernie, it was only one game a week.
Yeah.
And the playoff was
normally the Celtics.
Yeah, it was, it's always funny. Like, even the NFL, like, being from Alabama, you're going to get St. Louis. You're always going to get the Cowboys in football, the Giants, the St. Louis Rams. You're always going to get those teams. But in the NBA, it was always going to be Philly, Boston, L.A. That was the only three teams you were going to see. Because they always, obviously, they're trying to get ratings. That's the only game they're going to show every Sunday, one of those teams.
Reggie, what do you recall?
Like, I remember Michael Jordan when he came back from the ankle injury, going into Boston Garden, dropping 63. I think I was a freshman or sophomore at UCLA. I remember I woke up early, game was on CBS, and being in the dorm room and just screaming like I couldn't believe what I was watching. I mean, through the legs 8 times and, making Bird, Mikal Parrish trip, and then listening to Bird in the postgame talk about, that was God out there playing, and that was my first, this is unbelievable what I'm witnessing.
Steve Kerr.
Lakers, Celtics, 1984, 7-game series. I was a Laker fan, and Lakers won the first game in Boston, and they had the second one won when I believe James Worthy tried to throw a cross-court pass. Gerald Henderson stole it, tied the series. Lakers won the third game by 40 points. And at this point, you're like, this series should be over, right? I mean, one turnover, otherwise it's 3-0. And the Celtics came back and won the series, and there was so much stuff going on. That was when the Lakers locker room was 120 degrees, and they were saying Red Auerbach turned the heat up, and supposedly the fire alarm went off at the Laker hotel, at 5 o'clock in the morning. And that was kind of my first real sort of love for the NBA, and that whole series, the storylines, the drama, and the incredible level of basketball.
I think Magic playing center. When he jumped ball, that was when I was very young. The numbers he put up, being able to play center when Kareem couldn't play. And then I think being from Detroit, what Isaiah and Joe did, the bad boys, I mean, it made our entire city come together. The way they played the game, which was different, and Chuck Daly, the style of play. Those are my 2 moments that I'll never forget.
How about it, Bones?
Well, probably, obviously watching Lakers and Celtics through the 80s, but one of the moments that hit home was the Warriors, watching my home team, the Golden State Warriors, play in 1987 against the Los Angeles Lakers. A guy by the name of Eric Sleepy Floyd had one of the all-time greatest quarters in NBA playoff history, had 39 for the game, and as Reggie said, 29 points in the fourth quarter, 12 field goals. The Warriors won 129-121. The Lakers went on to win the championship that year. But the magic of the moment and listening to Greg Papa call that game and absolutely lose his marbles while this was happening was one of the most special basketball memories that I have as a kid growing up.
See?
A few memories. Being a Pistons fan, they all around the Pistons. Isaiah, when he hurt his ankle against the Lakers, he had 44 or something like that. I don't know the specific stats. And then I remember getting a whooping at the house because when Isaiah turned the ball over.
And now there's a steal by Bird. Underneath the DJ, lays it in. Right up, 1 second left. What a play by Bird. Bird stole pass. Laid it up to DJ. DJ laid it up at him. And Boston has a 1-point lead with 1 second left. Oh my, this place is going crazy.
We go around the house, it's okay to make noise, but you got 4 boys now with breaking stuff, and people are crying and going crazy, and Mom's like, hold on, remember, this is my house, and I just remember, being just rooting for the bad boys, that's it.
Shaq, I think everybody else has weighed in.
My favorite playoff moment is when something dramatic would happen to like one of our favorite players. Like, for example, when Michael Jordan caught the flu against Utah and everybody, oh, he didn't sleep, he didn't do that, what is he going to do? You know, we all thought at that point that Utah had a chance. And then he just went out, he had a credible game, and then Scotty was, you know, trying to help him to the bench and help him breathe. I just thought that, you know, he overcame having the flu, if he had the flu. He overcame having the flu, and he just no, I'm just saying, I'm just saying, he had the flu.
You have your own theory on this?
Before the game. No, I'm just saying,
Oliver Stone here.
He played an incredible game.
That was a great game, the night he had the flu. Back with more on Open Court after this. Chuckster, you keep an eye on all sports around the globe. Who's the best athlete out there?
I'm probably going to have to go with Steve Kerr, man.
Steve Kerr.
Wow. Thanks, Charles. Thank you.
And we welcome you back to Open Court, and we remind you can catch other episodes of this show on NBA.com. Lightning round is usually just a question we throw out there and see what kind of responses we get. Who's the best athlete in the world right now, Steve Kerr?
LeBron James. And I think he's the greatest athlete in the history of the world. I mean, if you think about it, just how big and strong and fast he is, I've never seen anything like it. I don't know if you guys have.
And this crosses any sports line. Who's the best athlete?
I'm going to go with Anderson the Spider Silva. He's an MMA. He's an MMA fighter. Probably the greatest fighter of all time. I was going to put John Bone Jones in there, but until he beats Anderson the Spider Silva, I'm going with him.
That's the best athlete in the world.
You think he can run a mile?
Well, I'll tell you what. I want guys where if I walk down a dark alley or into a bar, they got my back. He's got my back.
So that's your best athlete, is the guy who has your back.
He ain't going to get tired. I know that.
Chuckster, you keep an eye on all sports around the globe. Who's the best athlete out there?
I'm probably going to have to go with Steve Kerr, man.
Steve Kerr? He's the best athlete?
What he said.
Oh, okay. Unexpected support.
I mean, Steve, you actually came in third place. You know, like I say, I've never seen a guy like LeBron James that big. You know, it's hard to explain, because I've asked a couple of people, I said, well, how much you think LeBron weighed? They're like 270. And he looked like he weighs 220. And to be 6'8", be able to run like that, jump like that, guard any position, he's probably the best in the world today.
Chris Webber, you're up.
I agree with LeBron. I think LeBron, and just to throw somebody else in there, maybe, Usain Bolt, because,
you stole my name.
Yeah, but I'm like you, Chuck. I've never seen
how can he steal your name if he said it first?
I put it out there first mentally. I put it out there first mentally. He stole it out there.
It was hanging out here. I thought I saw it too.
You cheating on somebody paper, Gil.
He's not. He was. Stop. I'm going to say it.
Bones, go ahead.
I would like to step outside basketball, but I can't. I really think that we have the best athletes in the world. And if it's not Russell Westbrook, who I think is phenomenal at his position, but the combination of size, speed, skill, I think LeBron James is the guy.
I'm glad you said. I'm going with Russell Westbrook. If he wasn't playing basketball, I think he'd be phenomenal in football, baseball, track, soccer. It's unreal the way he goes this way, north and south, that way, stops on a dime. But I think, far as you're talking about a sport, LeBron, but I think Russell Westbrook as an athlete.
I told somebody, if that guy wants to go to the NFL, he could be a wide receiver,
D-back,
a running back, D-back, safety. That's how explosive. Yeah, I used to think, well, we don't have a point guard like Derrick Rose, but this guy could play any sport. I agree with you.
Shaq, I believe you're the only one who, and I know you wanted to go with Bolt.
I was going to go with Usain, but he cheated off my test. I'm going to go with the little guy, Floyd Mayweather. And I'm going to tell you why. I like his swag. He reminds me a lot like Chuck. Talks a lot, but he backs it up. He comes from a legendary fight family, but he's a great athlete. And then I've never seen his face get bashed up in a fight. You know, he always brags about how pretty he is and how fast he is, so I'm going to go with Floyd Mayweather.
Any sports in there that would be off limits for saying best athlete?
Golf.
No, I don't know about golf.
Golf, yes.
I commit to listen.
Tiger's not a great athlete?
Oh, yeah, but I'm not including him. But my father's, I play with a bunch of old men that beat me all the time, and it has nothing to do with athletic ability.
No golf. How about NASCAR?
I would say NASCAR. I was going to say NASCAR.
No, I disagree.
Drivers are not athletes?
No, drivers are athletes. I raced against Dale Earnhardt Jr., and that was the toughest thing I had to do. First of all, I had to fit in that little car. Yeah, it's not like the Buick. I fit in the Buick. By the way. No, but I had to get in the car. You had to put the suit on, and so you definitely have to be an athlete to, go through those strenuous situations. Well, I had a special car made. Yeah. I had some Daytons on that thing. I had some boom in the back. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we certainly will on another episode.